Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. I'm Shannon, and today for today's Vlogmas video I wanted to put up a paranormal type video, and I thought 'tis the season. Let's talk about some scary Christmas ghost stories. So I did a little bit of research on the internet because of course back in the day, 1500s, 1600s, ghost stories were really popular around Christmas time. It's only in the more recent years that we've kind of just veered more entirely towards the cozy, feel-good type of Christmas content. Back in the day, they used to like to scare children with terrifying Christmas stories. So I thought we'd talk about a few different ones that take place in different corners of the world and see what kind of terrifying things happen around Christmas time. Now, the first one that I wanted to talk about is probably the least scary of them, although it's still quite chilling in its own right. But this one takes place on the island of Alcatraz. Now, Alcatraz is known, of course, for its prison, and from the mid-30s until the mid-60s, it was a very intense type of prison. Further back in history than that, though, the island used to be a place where Native Americans would send miscreants, criminals, people that needed punishing. They'd send them off to the island and they would stay there. And then it was in the 30s that it got converted to a prison. When it was a prison, it held many notorious criminals such as Al Capone. Hey, when people go there to visit and on tours, they claim to hear screaming and clanging and just all kinds of really creepy things. This particular story that I'm going to tell you now takes place in the 1940s. And at that time, there was a warden at the prison named James Johnston. And on Christmas Day, he wanted to hold a little party for the staff that worked at the prison. And he held it at the residence on the island. So he invited everyone there, and they were having a dinner, a big feast, and there was a lot of merriment, good cheer. People were having an overall good time until all of a sudden the temperature in the room dropped. The fire in the fireplace went out, and all of a sudden they all could see an apparition of a man. He had mutton chop whiskers and was sporting a gray suit, and they all just saw him sort of floating around in there, and they were all truly terrified. And that put an end to the party real quick, and they all left. None of them wanted to stay on the island for the night, and they were all just too scared to stay overnight at the residence. Now, the next story that I'm going to tell you has been retold many times, and the location of where it happened keeps changing depending on who's telling the story. But from what I could tell, this was the most accurate or the most agreed upon version of the story. It's very tragic, it's very sad, and it takes place at Christmas time. And this is the Mistletoe Bride at Bramshill House. Now, in the early 17th century, a young woman was set to get married on Christmas Day at Bramshill House. Now, Bramshill House is located in Hampshire, England, and it's said that after the ceremony there was a huge feast, you know, as is tradition with weddings. And then afterwards, as was the tradition at the time, they were getting ready to carry the bride up to the marriage bedroom. Super creepy tradition, but it's what they used to do. So the bride gets it in her mind that she wants to have a bit of fun before she goes off to consummate her marriage. And she tells them that she wants to play a little game, and she runs off ahead. And for hours, they look for her. People start to think that she must have run off, like got scared and just ran away. And they searched all over the house, or so they thought. Years passed, and the groom of the pair, Lord Lovell, I believe his name was, he never stopped looking for her. He always kept it in the back of his mind when he would roam his home, when he would roam the town. He never stopped looking for her. And the way the story goes is that it was 50 years later. One night, Lord Lovell went up into the attic of the home. And while he was cleaning or rearranging or whatever it was he was doing up there, he discovered a door that he had never seen before. It's kind of like a hidden sort of trap door, and he opened it, and sure enough, there were her remains inside, still wearing her wedding dress and still clutching the bouquet of mistletoe that she had carried since their wedding was on Christmas Day. How sad is that? That she had been in the house the whole time. Variations of that story have been used before in other stories. Recently, I read a story, I think it was The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware, where there's a similar, it's not a marriage in Christmas Day, but it's similar, somebody hiding and is never found until many, many, many years later. But that's just such a tragic story, and to think she must have been so scared, because they could tell from the inside of the door there were marks on it and scratches as though she had been trying desperately to get out. And that's just such a tragic way to go. And I imagine as well, especially considering, you know, that she was so playful and wanting to, you know, have a little fun on her wedding day, that she was probably a very young girl as well. And that's just such a tragic way to go, feeling so scared and trapped like that. The third one that I wanted to tell you about involves Anne Boleyn, which I've always found Anne Boleyn to be a very interesting woman. She was a real woman in history. She was one of King Henry VIII's ill-fated wives. I think she was the second one. And I just always love reading about them. So when I came across this story, I found it very interesting and wanted to share it with you guys as well. So like I said, Anne Boleyn was the second of King Henry VIII's wives. Now, in order to marry Anne, he had quite a bit of a hassle because he first had to get unmarried from his first wife, Catherine. So he spent years trying to get a divorce from her. And in doing that, he actually went on to sever England's ties with the Catholic Church in Rome, which of course changed the entire course of history. And I'm just going to read you this little bit here so that I get all the details right. So it says, despite the lengths that he went to ensnare her, he soon grew tired of Anne, because that was his thing. He was just the worst. And choosing to believe the idle gossip surrounding her, of which we won't go into now because it's not a video about that. Although I'd love to make a video about that. But anyway, he chose to have her beheaded because that was also his thing. And so that happened in 1536. So this is a number of reports exist of the ghost of Anne Boleyn. But perhaps the most interesting is the stories surrounding her childhood home and how it's said that her spirit is still haunting there. Now, the way the story goes is that on Christmas Eve, late at night, there's a bridge that crosses a river that leads to Hever Castle. And it said that on Christmas Eve, you can see very, very slowly the ghostly image of Anne Boleyn crossing the bridge headed to her childhood home, because it was said that at Hever Castle, that was where she had always been the happiest. It's the place where, you know the feelings attached to your childhood home, most generally, if you had a relatively happy childhood. Those feelings that you forever hold in your heart for that place. She, no doubt, held those same feelings, and yeah, if you're around, you can see her floating across the bridge, headed back home on Christmas Eve. So, there you go. Those are just a few spooky stories to keep you warm this holiday season, or to chill your blood this holiday season. Let me know if you enjoyed these. If you did, maybe I'll get one more up before Christmas of some other Christmas stories. My dear friend Kim V on Instagram a little while ago, she sent me an article about books that were Christmas ghost stories, and unfortunately I didn't have enough time to order and read them for this Christmas, but I ordered a couple and I'm going to read them next year during Vlogmas. So you've got that to look forward to. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being so wonderful and amazing and supportive for Vlogmas so far. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be kind of the 2 days worth of vlogging in one, because this is going up today as Vlogmas. So I used earlier today to film vlog footages. And then I'll just mash 2 together for tomorrow's video. Anyway, guys, I'll see you then. Bye.